Let's talk about Guardians first, I think,
Sure.
because I think there's two different discussions here. There's a discussion about Guardians, which we have slightly different opinions on. I don't think terribly different, but slightly different.
Mhm.
And then there's a discussion on post Infinity Saga,
Uh-huh.
which
The
almost
disgrace.
almost has two separate discussions in itself.
Yeah.
Um, so I really liked Guardians. I thought it was very good.
Mhm.
I thought all the humor worked for me, honestly. I was laughing so much while watching it.
I left a good amount. I thought the humor was solid.
Yeah.
And it ended up like I it was a good movie. I gave it a 6.5. But it was very much it redeemed itself towards the end for me.
Mhm.
It was a good chunk early in the movie where I was kind of like, oof.
What did you not like about the beginning?
Yeah, it was hard for me to explain, but I just kind of was bored. Like it was
Okay.
just one of those where it was kind of like I almost had a desire to go on my phone.
Huh.
Um, and it just I can't really give you exact parts or like why. Um, but I don't know. I just wasn't some of that there were like I think there was some acting early where I was just kind of like, I don't know, I'm not on board with this. Um,
Hmm.
and it started to come around towards like later. So that's why it ended up it was solid, but it just wasn't I was hoping for it to be better personally.
Interesting.
But like
What
overall the
did you
humor was
heard
solid.
about it before? What did you heard
Not
about it going in?
nothing. I'm
Okay.
pretty intentional with movies trying to like not pay attention to anything.
Yeah.
So I didn't watch the trailer, I hadn't heard anything at all.
So I had heard people saying that it was the best Marvel movie, full stop. Like some people think it was their favorite Marvel, and then a lot of people say it was the best one since um Endgame or Infinity War even. Um
I
I
think
had
that's
it I think that's a little bit crazy. Um I liked like I've told you, I like a lot of the recent ones. I had it at 86% on my calculator that I made. I gave the plot an 8. I thought it was fine. I thought it was good, entertaining. I gave it a 9.6 on emotions. Like I said, I laughed a ton. The ending like shocked me. um, Star Lord's ending, and that shocked me. Um, and I thought they did a really nice job making you feel for all the characters at the end. I love Star Lord and Gamora's little sequence. Um,
can't
that's one of
relate.
those things where I didn't I personally was rooting for that to go differently, but I thought what they did well enough that it sort of like appeases me, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then what's the last one? And then the villain I gave a 8.5. I thought he was pretty good. Um, it was interesting to see if he comes back, if there's more of him, what they do with that based on some other off-screen stuff. I would be interested to see what happens. But I thought he was good. I thought the actor was really good as well. There was a couple things that was a little weird with the villain, but I thought the actor did him really well.
Yeah. So I hate the multiverse, which we have talked
Yeah.
about at
Okay,
length.
but this is not. But here's the thing: this is not a multiverse
But
movie.
it is
Besides
because
Gamora,
yes, which bothers me a lot.
but that part. So you didn't think he handled that well.
No, because I hate the multiverse. I hate the
Okay.
fact that there can be two Gamoras, like period. I hate that. And so the only way that it could have been slightly redeemed for me is if she ended up being exactly the same as the other Gamora. But since she's not, I hate it.
But I think it was so interesting that she's different because she didn't have all of that other stuff
Right.
that made her the Gamora.
I get that, but that's my point is like Gamora is Gamora, and I don't like the fact that there's multiple.
But
I hate it.
it is still the same Gamora though.
But no, it's not.
It's just that Gamora without, the let's say like 2014 to 2018 parts. It's like still 2014
Yeah,
Gamora.
but that's what I'm saying is it's not her then because it's lacking the experiences, and now there's going to be a completely different dynamic there. Like I despise that to my core. The fact that there is not
Why?
the fact
So
that there is
why do you hate that so much?
because it ruins every story if there's just an unlimited versions like number of these people. So it's like Thor is Thor. Like there's one of him and it's you follow
Uh-huh.
that story. This idea that there's now just like infinite ruins all of them, makes none of them special. And it's just like, okay, well, what's the point? Like you don't like this story. There's a different story with Spider-Man where all everything that happens in this one goes differently in another one. So you can just imagine that story. You like that one.
Yeah, but we only see what we see.
Right. But we're seeing multiple of them.
So but that stuff is always there as a possibility. Like that, like you could always say like, oh well, I don't like this story. What if it happened this way? And then like imagine it. But so is it just because
But
we're
that's you. But that's
seeing
no,
that
because
there
that's you.
is another
Because that's
one?
you imagining something that's not real.
Yeah.
This is actually now they're saying it's real. They're saying there's all these universes where it happened all sorts of different ways.
Okay,
Like
but
you don't like
so you can't just ignore the other universes that we're not seeing though?
because no, because now they're bringing them in. Like it's an absurd idea. It's just
Hmm.
a stupid idea because it ruins the story that we've seen because it's
I
not now
don't
the
I
story.
don't think it does personally.
But now they're infusing all the universes, which then causes a problem. Like if you just tell me there's another Gamora out there and I have to be like, oh, okay, I recognize it as a fact, but I never have to deal with it, fine, cool, I don't care. But I
Hmm.
have to deal with it now because you're showing me. I have to deal with different Spider-Mans. I have to deal with all these different things. I hate that.
So you're just unable to deal with it, is what you're saying.
I mean, I hate the concept.
Yeah. I don't know. I see it completely differently. I think, in terms of just for this one, in terms of Gamora, I think it's really interesting to watch how they dealt with her learning kind of that this did happen, that he's not just making this up as like a way to hit on her or something, that there was a point in the multiverse where she learned to love him. They became an item. And I think it is really interesting how she's also able to be like, well, I am still me though. Like I didn't experience that personally. So I'm not just gonna, go along with that and fall back into that. I need to live my own life. And then I thought it was also interesting to see how Peter kind of deals with that and comes to realize like it's not my Gamora. It's, another universe Gamora. And I thought that moment at the end was really nice.
Yeah, I just I hated every bit of it.
So now here's a question. We were discussing this on text, and I wanted to ask this question, but I didn't want to ask it on text because it can come off kind of cold.
That's okay. Go ahead.
So you were fully aware that this was the multiverse saga, correct?
Uh, what do you mean?
Like after, even after Far From Home, we'll say, because Far From Home is technically Infinity Saga. Like, were you aware that they were going to go into the multiverse, or did the first time that they actually like did it, was that just a complete shock?
I don't think I really knew until Loki.
Okay,
I think that's where I started to understand it
okay.
because I
So
don't
that's
read
still relatively early.
I don't read the comics. Like I don't really
Yeah,
know the comics at all. So I like none of the story is something that I know. Like I don't ever know what's
right.
coming. So I didn't know about it. I think Loki is when it was like, okay, now I get it.
Okay. Because there was a point, and the problem is I don't remember when this happened, but there was a point when they came out and said that was the Infinity Saga. We're now doing the multiverse saga. So it was like, okay, we're going multiverse. It's kind of go big or go home with this. Here we go.
Yeah.
And I feel like you're not alone in that you don't like the multiverse. But you said to me they should have just left the Infinity Saga alone and not gone on.
Yeah, they should have stopped.
However, you also could have just not watched past the Infinity Saga,
No, yeah,
and that would be
but so
right.
right, so theoretically, sure. But my thing is the fact when you create movies, they're in the series, like they're in the MCU,
Hmm.
so that's going to taint them. For example, this is not a great one because I don't like Indiana Jones, period. But they have 5 Indiana Jones movies now, right?
Yeah.
Most Indiana Jones fans, I think, would look at it as like it's this great trilogy that unfortunately has these 2 other movies that were just clearly money grabs that shouldn't have been made, but they exist, and so they
Hmm.
tarnish the series because they exist. So that's my thing. Is like I want to enjoy Marvel. I wasn't mad at when Endgame happened. I wasn't like they need to stop it because the idea
Hmm.
of more content, of course, like I'm excited for more movies. But I do think in any movie series, the reality is you either have to like stop it at a point where you start the story, like and then bring it to fruition and close it, or
Hmm.
they will keep making movies and at some point history to me has shown you go too far and at some point you start to lose it and then you're kind of forced to stop because the movies are no longer good and it tarnishes the whole. So to me, the MCU, if you end it at Endgame, is just like the greatest cinematic feat, I guess, ever, where they have 20 something movies that all intertwine. They're all part of one bigger story that start and kind of come to a close in this really incredible way. Um, Now they're continuing. And you made the point of you view it, the MCU as multiple different series within
Yeah.
MCU. And so it's like I can get that, but to me it's still I love the MCU, but now it's like, do I though? Because they have all these bad movies.
So for me, it's just that they did it. I think credit to them, they did a good job of saying like this is the Infinity Saga, and to me that's yes, it is one big series, and it will be it almost is sort of like the comics where all the comics are connected. I haven't read hardly any of them, but all the comics are connected, and so in that way they're all one story. But you can also have like this is my favorite run of Captain America or whatever, and if you don't like something else that's part of the comics, you can still really like that Captain America run. So like for me, it's yes, it's one long series and it's the same Thor, it's the same Star-Lord, the same Guardians, but there will always be the Infinity Saga as the Infinity Saga was. And anything that they put out now will not change how much I loved the Infinity Saga and how much I will continue to go back. Like I'm not going to go back to the Infinity Saga in the same way that I go back to Star Wars movies and watch them and be like, oh, well, now that I've seen, Spider-Man No Way Home, Spider-Man Homecoming, and it doesn't feel as good or something. Like, I don't know if that's how because of the way I approached it or if it's something like that. But for me, the Infinity Saga is like locked in this box, and nothing they do will reach that box.
I
No
see.
matter what the
Yeah.
circumstances are.
See, I would be in the same boat if they didn't continue characters. Like if it was just introduce new characters, this is a separate story, I'd be that's fine. But because it's like, oh, I'm watching the Infinity Saga, I'm watching Spider-Man, I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
well, I know that they ruined Spider-Man to me. Um,
So
so
that brings me
that's
to
going to
another
change it.
question. How were you able to enjoy Endgame?
What do you mean?
Because a major plot of Endgame is going into an alternate timeline and
Well, because
I mean, we have a Captain America on Captain America fight. So how
so that's because to me it's like um I didn't fully understand what they were doing with the different timelines. I thought it was just you're going back in time. So you're not dealing with a different version, you're just dealing with the same version previously in time, which time travel
Mhm.
is a different question. Um, so that's why I wasn't bothered by it. Um,
Gamora would be the same case though, because she just time traveled essentially.
right, but now it's she's different.
But it's the same
But so
it's the same
it's the
Gamora
same.
though.
Okay, but the time travel that they did in Endgame doesn't affect like any of the story like this Gamora does now in Guardians. Now we have a Gamora that's on a completely different path with a completely different story. In Endgame, it was just like they go back in time. Theoretically, it's fine. It doesn't really do anything.
Hmm. Okay.
You know what I'm saying? And that's
Yeah,
like
I can see what you're saying.
I do think time travel is impossible to do well because ultimately it just never actually makes sense.
Yeah.
But this is the like I feel like they did it the best way they could with sort of the timelines, but it just the multiple timelines are different, and that's where the issue I have with the multiverse. But you don't deal with that in Endgame.
Okay. You do a little bit of Gamora. You do get a little bit of Gamora, a little bit of
Tiny bit.
Nebula issues. Um,
And I did
yeah.
so I didn't like I don't love the fact I didn't love it, but it was like it is what it is. It was small, and to me it was like okay, they don't know Gamora, but Gamora's the same, so they're gonna fall in love and it will be fine. Like they'll that story will still continue as it was.
Hmm.
Now it's like oh, it's a different story, right? So
Okay. So, that's something that we're probably just not gonna
right, and this is
see
why
eye to eye on,
this
and
is why
unfortunately, yeah.
when
Go
we were
ahead.
talking about like the multiverse, and I was saying I'm never going to like a multiverse movie, and you're
Yeah.
like, well, maybe if they do it well, like this is why I won't because I hate the concept.
And now here's where I think there's a problem because I don't. This is another situation, right? Similar to like our when we ranked NFL quarterbacks. We had a long, long conversation about Tom Brady, even though we both had him ranked the same.
Yeah,
Where we're having this discussion and we clearly have a very strong disagreement about something. Um, but I don't think we disagree about the state of the the universe, the franchise as a whole, and the fact that we have that large disagreement, but both agree that it has gone downhill is not good for them.
no, it's not. And the reality is, which I haven't talked to that many people, but of all most of the friends I've talked to, seems like everyone is kind of roughly in the same place where they're like pretty much done with Marvel, but
Yeah.
not quite done. And I think most people, it's they loved Marvel so much that it's
Yes.
hard to be like, oh, I'm just out on Marvel,
Hmm.
which is why I've comfortably come to the place of I, for the foreseeable future, won't be seeing Marvel movies in the theaters.
Yeah.
And my biggest thing is like, it's just not worth, those movies are not worth spending money on anymore.
Hmm.
And especially how expensive movie tickets are. I
Right.
was like, I will keep up when they come out on on Disney Plus. Um, but I'm not going to have some rush and excitement to see them.
Hmm.
Um, and I mean, I'm already fully behind. I still haven't seen the newest Black Panther, and there's multiple shows I haven't seen. And to be honest, I'm just not in a rush to see any of them.
Hmm.
Um, and like Black Panther, I've heard fine things. Like I'm not even expecting it to be bad, but it
Yeah,
just,
I thought it was good.
they've lost me, and unfortunate.
So the problem to me is not. I think there's a problem way bigger than whether they did a multiverse or whether they didn't do a multiverse.
Yeah, because I mean, yeah, they've had movies that aren't involving the multiverse that I still despised very
Yeah,
strong, but didn't like. I mean, Thor: Love and Thunder is
right. They
far and away
missed.
the worst Marvel movie to me that they've made. The only where I just thoroughly did not enjoy it, um, and that one didn't really have multiverse in it. But
Yeah. Um, I didn't hate Thor: Love and Thunder the same way that you did, but I did think it was a it was a big disappointment
yeah,
considering where they were coming from with Ragnarok. So here's the problem for me is um so phase one was started with Iron Man, ended with the Avengers. It lasted from May 2nd, 2008 to May 4th, 2012. So almost exactly 4 years. You have six movies.
yeah,
Um, some are good, some are not great, depending who you ask.
yeah.
Um, then we have phase two. Phase two lasted a little over 2 years, so much shorter. It also had six movies. You have Iron Man 3 kicking it off, and it finishes with Ant-Man right after Avengers Age of Ultron.
Mm,
Um, Again, some really good ones. You have Winter Soldier, Guardians of the Galaxy in there. You have Thor:
mm,
The Dark World in there. A lot of people probably would say Iron Man 3 is not the best.
yeah,
Um, and then phase three is kind of where they really started kicking things off. You have a little over 3 years and 11 movies, it looks like, if I'm adding it up correctly very quickly. Um,
impressive.
so that's where they really started going in on
Yeah,
it.
just
Some obviously smash hits. Infinity War, Endgame, Ragnarok was huge. Civil War was huge. Um, some maybe fell a little bit short of what people were expecting, but I think overall relatively positive.
yeah,
Um, then you have what is it, 23, I think. You have 11 and then two of six. So 23 movies over a course of 11 years.
yeah.
Phase four kicks off, goes from July 9th to November 11th, 2022. July 9th, 2021, November 11th, 2022. So about a year and a half, we'll say, not quite a
Right,
year and a half,
sure.
and seven movies.
And then shows.
Seven movies plus these are all phase four shows. So eight shows. One, two, three, four, five,
Is
six,
that
seven,
right? In
eight.
just a little over a
Yeah.
year?
So you have 15 projects in a little over a year. Um,
Hard to replicate the
that's
quality.
that's where I think the problem is.
Mm,
In just that they're trying to do way too much, and that's where I think a lot of the burnout is.
yeah,
Like I saw really the video was not great overall, but they made some good points in it, and one of them was because of the scarcity previously, going to an MCU movie felt like a big occasion because you only had two or three a year maybe, and besides that, that was it. You had some years you only had a couple. Some years, like we were saying, 2019 had three, and that felt like a lot. Um, Now you have two or three movies a year. Then there's two or three shows a year. It's just constantly there's constantly something to be watching, and I think a lot of people have felt like they're watching it to keep up as opposed to watching it just to watch it and just to go see it.
yeah.
Um, and unfortunately, that's probably not going to change
Like
until
yeah,
they do what people theoretically think is going to be a hard reset. at the end of phase 6. Um, because they've already timelined everything out.
Yeah, I was gonna say they've
they
committed.
they've already said they're doing this. Right now, phase 6 is scheduled to end May 1st, 2026. There is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It looks like 10, maybe 10 uh projects confirmed coming that it looks like are feature films, and we have 3 years. And I believe they've also said that those are not like they're going to announce more.
Yeah,
So
it's just not good, and it's sad because for so long, and you were always probably a little bit more of a Marvel fan, but I just like I would get so excited for every Marvel movie. When I think about movies, like Marvel were always the top of the line for like the occasions each year. When I think about the next 12 months, there's a number of movies that I'm very excited for. Marvel is not even remotely on the list.
yeah, it was something I always wanted them to keep going, but at the same time I was very skeptical about how they did it,
Yeah.
partially because of the multiverse, because it can get very, very messy. I'm not quite as averse to the general concept that they chose to go with as you are, so I was open to them doing it, but I also obviously understand that it's kind of a tricky thing to pull off. I kind of give them the benefit of the doubt because they did time travel okay, in my opinion, and so far, I think they've done the multiverse okay for me. Um, but it's just some of the other stuff that has affected how they go about things, makes it a little bit weird to be a Marvel fan right now, I'll say.